What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having a great day. Today, I'm going to be bringing you the best possible loadouts to use in Warzone. But real quick, if you guys do at any point in this video find that it is helpful to you and you guys do enjoy the classes, make sure you guys leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. So starting off with our first gun, the absolute best AR you could possibly use is the DG 56, 58, whatever they decided to make it that day. Warzone's only been out 2 days and they've changed the name of it twice, but overall, this is one of the best assault rifles you could possibly use. It is neat though because we have not had a burst meta in Warzone since the M16 back in Cold War. So it is quite refreshing seeing that come back. But to get more in depth in the attachments, I did choose the Spirit Fire Suppressor for pretty much all of my long range guns because it's one of the best ones you could choose, I'd say. The reason I say that is because you still are undetectable by the radar. It helps your recoil control, bullet velocity, and damage range. No other suppressor does that, so I do believe that this is a crucial attachment for pretty much any long range gun. For the barrel, the gun does not have much recoil, but you do want to get as much as you can out of it, as well as maxing out your bullet velocity and range. There is a second option you can choose if you do not like that barrel because it does make it a little bit slower. You could try out this one as well because it does help with the bullet velocity and range still, but it does not harm your movement speed like the other one does. For the optic that I chose, this is going to be an optic that you're going to want to use on pretty much any of the low recoil alternatives. It's got a really clear picture and you can easily see people at pretty far range. And my favorite part is that it doesn't have any sort of visual shake to it really, so it's going to be very simple to use. Now for my next attachment, you could choose to put an underbarrel on, a stock on, a rear grip on, anything you want. But I chose to put on the high velocity rounds just so it is a bit easier to use at range. And like I said, this gun does not have much recoil at all, so you really don't need to put them on if you don't want to. But if you do find that it is a little bit difficult to use, you can maybe put on one of those instead. And then depending on what mode you're playing, if you're playing like solos or duos, potentially even trios, you could use the 40 round mag. But if you are a quads player, I would recommend using the 60 round drum just in case you do get into a bigger fight. Another great gun that you could use for long range fighting is the PKM. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce this one's name, but it is the PKM from the last game, so I'm just gonna stick with that. But there is one crucial thing you want to do to this thing. Instead of just using a default, you want to go into the conversion kit and change it to the bullpup kit. Now, the reason for this is because in the new Warzone, long range fighting just really isn't that great overall, unless you have a sniper, of course. So with these types of guns, you want to make sure that you have more mobility, and that's exactly what this conversion kit does to the PKM. It helps with your mobility, it helps with your rate of fire, it helps with your ADS speed. It just helps you get into combat faster rather than having to pull your gun out, slowly ADS, and then have a slow fire rate. So if you miss one bullet, the TTK skyrockets. Instead, this one helps a lot with everything that you're going to want in mid-range fights. So as I mentioned previously on the DG56, this gun also uses the Spirit Fire Suppressor for the same reasons I mentioned on the first one. Pretty much every long-range gun is going to use this suppressor because it has everything you want for it. For my next attachment, I chose to do the barrel that's available with the bullpup because it does help with your bullet velocity and your damage range. So as it states in the game, it says that your effective damage range and your minimum damage range are both increased by 34%. And not only that, it also increases your bullet velocity by 17.9%. So overall, this is just a good attachment to have. And again, much like I mentioned in the first gun, the DG56, we are going to be using the same optic that I used on that one, which is the Choreo Eagle's Eye 2.5 times. Just like the other one, this is a lower recoil gun. It may be a little bit more difficult, but in the end, I do think this is the best optic you could possibly use on it. And then for my next attachment, you can also choose an underbarrel if you want to, but I do believe, according to the in-game stats at least, the stock is going to be the one that helps the absolute most with your recoil. So with that being said, I decided to use the Command D15 Recoil Reduction Pad, possibly one of the longest names for an attachment. And then for my final long-range gun that I would recommend in this game, I would recommend the sniper rifle, of course. With the new Warzone update, one-shot snipers that have a higher bullet velocity are indeed back, which is making the game kind of sniper-dominated in a way. So if you found yourself getting outgunned by snipers or just getting third-party by snipers all day, you might want to give it a try yourself. So for the class setup on the Katt AMR, I wanted to go full bullet velocity. The goal of a sniper is to get as many shots off as possible and as accurately as possible. So the nice thing about the sonic suppressor is that you are getting bullet velocity and range, but you are not sacrificing your aim downside speed. A lot of the other suppressors do hinder your ADS speed, which is something that you do not want because it just takes longer to get the shot off. For the barrel, I decided to use the only barrel that has bullet velocity, which is the Zang 34 barrel. What this barrel does, it adds 34% to your damage ranges, and it also adds 17.9% to your bullet velocity, getting you close to 1200 milliseconds on your bullet velocity. And then once again, to improve your bullet velocity, I chose to use the 50 cal Spire point rounds. This ammunition type in particular helps by adding 34% to your bullet velocity and a little bit to your damage ranges as well. As far as the optic that I want to use, I'm not entirely sure which one's the absolute best yet, but I did find the SPX 80 has the variable zoom, so you're able to do it as a more aggressive build, and you could also zoom in further for the long range shots. I'm sure there's other optics you can use as well, but this is the one that I ended up ultimately using. And then lastly, for the last attachment that I use the quick bolt because like I said earlier, you want to get those shots off as fast as possible. So being able to chamber your bullets a lot faster helps a lot. All right, moving on to the close range guns now. We are going to be looking at the Striker 9 first, which has been overall my favorite SMG to use. But that does not mean that I don't like the other SMGs because they all feel really good. Everything feels fairly balanced, which is a nice thing to say for once because Warzone 2, as we all remember, had pretty much the same meta for months at a time. So when I was building out my SMGs, the main thing that I wanted to look for was to maximize my movement speed and minimize my recoil. But at the same time, I wanted to make it to where I didn't have to worry about sacrificing any sort of damage range or bullet velocity just in case I had to shoot at medium range. So for my first attachment, I chose the Colossus Suppressor because it still keeps me undetectable by the radar. It helps with my recoil, and it only hurts my ADS just a little bit. The nice thing is, though, the SMGs already have a fairly quick ADS speed, so harming it a little bit is really not going to do too much. For my next attachment, I chose the Striker Recon Long Barrel because it does help with your bullet velocity and range. Because like I mentioned, I want to be able to use it at a medium range if I have to. And again, the sacrifice towards your aim walking speed and your sprint to fire speed really isn't too much. According to the game, you're really only losing a little bit. As far as your ADS strafe speed, you're losing 2.3%. In your sprint to fire, you're losing 4.3%. So for my next attachment, I chose the DR6 hand stop. This is like the perfect underbarrel to put on an SMG because it helps with everything that you're going to want to have on an SMG. It helps with your strafe speed, your ADS speed, your sprint to fire speed, and gives you more movement speed. So for my next attachment, I chose the FSS Priority Tactical Stock, which helps with your recoil control, your movement speed, and your sprint speed. With mobility being back in the game, I'm trying to find a way to make the SMGs not incredibly bouncy recoil-wise, and still have quite a bit of movement. And this class is probably one of the best examples of exactly that. And then for my final attachment, I chose the 50 round mag. But again, this goes back to what I was saying at the start of the video as well. If you want to have something that's a little bit quicker and you're playing like solos and duos, you probably don't need 50 rounds. So you can go with the 40 round mag and save yourself some mobility. And for my next SMG, I chose the Wasp Swarm, which is probably one of the best ones TTK wise. The only downside that I could say with this gun is it has an incredibly fast fire rate. So you're going to blow through ammo incredibly fast. Now to go hand in hand with that high fire rate, you also have pretty crazy recoil as well. So with that being said, you are going to want to focus a little bit more on recoil with this gun, which brings us to our first attachment, which is the X10 Razor Comp. When we're using the in-game stats, we don't really have full actual stats yet to see if these are all accurate. But when we are considering what to use, I do notice a lot of horizontal recoil with this gun. So I did look at all of the different compensators and ultimately came up with the X10 Razor Comp because it does help with pretty much all three of the different recoils, but mainly focuses on horizontal, which decreases it by 22%. The one unfortunate thing about this gun is that if you do use a compensator, you do not have a suppressor, so you will show up on the radar. For the next attachment that I chose, I wanted to use a barrel that again lets me fight at mid-range if I have to. So I chose the Wasp Reckless 90 long barrel. This is going to help you with that bullet velocity and range and your recoil control to keep you more on target and help you hit your shots better. But like I mentioned, this gun is incredibly fast, so you do not have to worry about lowering any of your ADS speeds or anything like that. For my next attachment, I chose the FSS Fortress Heavy Stock. This stock is also going to help pretty dramatically to keep you on target. As you can see in the in-game stats, it helps by over 20% in almost every recoil category. Now for my next attachment, I did choose the DR6 hand stop again, which just overall helps with that mobility. You could make it even more accurate by putting on a stable underbarrel, but I did want to make sure that it stayed up to par with the Striker as far as the movement speed goes. So ultimately, I did choose to use this to help with that movement speed, but you can make it more accurate with another underbarrel that helps with recoil. And then finally, for my last attachment on the Wasp Swarm, I chose the 50 round mag. Without the 50 round mag, you're going to run out of bullets way too fast. You probably won't be able to get more than 2 kills. And then for my last gun, I chose the other version of the Striker, which shoots the 45 rounds. This gun is going to have the exact same build as the Striker 9, so we're going to start off by using the Colossus Suppressor, which again keeps you undetectable by the radar and helps with your recoil control a little bit. One bonus over the Striker versus the Striker 9 is that it does hit a little bit harder at longer ranges, which kind of segues into the whole bullet velocity and damage range thing. You just want to make sure that you are able to use these SMGs at medium range if you do run out of ammo in your AR. I also chose to use the FSS Priority Tactical Stock for the Striker because it just helps overall with the build. It helps with your recoil so you can stay on target. It helps with your movement speed and your sprint speed, so overall you're just quicker on the map. But with all those other attachments hurting your ADS speed, the DR6 hand stop does help it a little bit. So if you were worried about your gun being too slow with these attachments, it comes together at the end. And then lastly, for my last attachment on the Striker, I chose to use the 48 round mag. I have never had a situation yet where I've had to use the 60 round drum or anything like that. And that's probably a good thing because the 60 round drum does hurt your movement speed and everything mobility wise quite a bit. But that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys do enjoy these class setups. Again, if you guys do, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. There's going to be plenty more content over this new Warzone update. If there's any other class setups or gameplays you would like to see from me, let me know in the comments down below. But that's going to be it. Hope you guys enjoy, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.